Brodes Media.
I had to run around earlier this morning, and I normally throw the TV on so the dogs don't bark. I'm not a huge ESPN guy in the morning, but I happened to toss it on just so there's noise, and I hear Rex Ryan, ironically enough, talk about where the Eagles are in his eyes. And one of the biggest problems he sees when he's watching the team out there on the field. And he used the phrase, independent contractors. Doesn't look like a team. It looks like a group of selfish men. Okay? And that is so perfectly said. I'm not even going to date back to Brian Dawkins, right? I'm not even going to date back to some of the biggest names in franchise history, Reggie White and Harold, right? Like, no, I get that. I'm talking about the recent. We have been so used to guys who understand what it means to put on that uniform. Zach Ertz, Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, them being the obvious. Brent Selleck, Malcolm Jenkins. Who else? Darren Sproles is one that I jotted down. And there are two left standing. Brandon Graham and Lane Johnson. But unfortunately, it takes a lot of bricks to build a house. And I don't think BG and Lane can do it on their own. Hell, when Slay was discussing what type of leader he was, and he's the goofball, which I admire and understand the role because, shocker, I was a huge locker room guy in my prime, okay? So I know the importance of the character. The guy who gets the fellas to laugh. The guy who gets, the fellas to loosen up a little bit, have some fun, enjoy what they're doing, while there's other hardos. And Slay referenced what Jason Kelsey used to do in that room by screaming, and that was the role that he filled. And now that's not there. And it goes a long way when you have a head coach that doesn't bring that element. It hurts regardless, even if you do have a head coach that brings that element, but it makes it significantly harder. And now we are in a transition as a fan base of not really having those players left in the room that, quote, know what it means to put on that jersey. Maybe Devontae Smith one day grows into that. Maybe Quinyon Mitchell one day grows into that. I'm not telling you there's no one who eventually has the understanding, but it takes a lot of bricks. Sorry, hiccups. Takes a lot of bricks. And it makes me uncomfortable with the current state of the room. So I thought that was interesting timing. The football gods had me pop on the television just for that. And that's that. So, okay. Let's get to Jalen Hurts, because I'm having a very difficult time trying to figure out what's right for him off the field. If you remember, 3 months ago or so, I was informed that the media was driving a non-story because of the way Jalen Hurts answered a question in minicamp. I'm going to replay the audio for you. I was very aware that it wasn't media-driven, and it's because there's something really weird going down between these two and their relationship. But after hearing Jalen again just a day or two ago, and also reflecting back to this answer I'm about to play now, man, if this doesn't open your eyes to reality, I don't know what is. So this is 3 months ago. Take a listen.
Nick being open-minded to change up the offense like he has. I mean, what does that say about him?
It's a great question. I don't know that I know the answer to it.
What have you seen? What have you seen from him as far as doing that?
I think he's just, he's been a, great and You know, the messages he's delivering to the team. He's trying to be very intentional in what he's saying. And yeah.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. That's unbelievable, right? And this will all add up in a second here. It all makes sense on why I'm replaying it. This was Jalen post-game on Sunday when he was asked about how Nick Sirianni and him handle the messaging to the team. Here's Jalen.
You and Nick are obviously big voices on the team as the head coach and the quarterback. As you enter the bye and you want to find an identity, do you two talk about maybe, what you want the message to be to the team or how you kind of want to handle, as you guys go into the second part of the year?
We have our moments.
What do you mean you have your moments? We have our moments. So you're telling me, remember, right? The coach just talked about how proud he was of Jalen for having such a strong statement towards the team after one of their most discouraging losses as a unit. And they don't ever talk ever about what they're going to. It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense at all. The stories don't match up. It doesn't align. And what I'm seeing is the head coach is willing to die on the sword for all of his men, even if they don't respect him, which I respect that move. Now I'm starting to look at Jalen and go, yo, man, you are a leader. You are a face of a franchise. You are a damn quarterback. You have to fake it. Because if you are so open, and that is as open gets, you can't get any more insanely wide open that you despise your head coach. And whether you do or don't is a different discussion. Because I wouldn't trust Nick Sirianni if I was a quarterback. Hell, I'd be very aggravated with him. But I wouldn't let anybody know as crazily easily as he is right now. The room smells that. The room sees that. The room reacts to that. Whether Jalen wants Quinyon Mitchell to buy in or not, whether Jalen wants Brandon Graham to buy in or not, whether Jalen wants any of these guys to buy into Nick Sirianni or not, who he doesn't believe in, your duties is to act more professional than Jalen is off the field. And now let's even dig deeper on these most recent comments. What do you mean you and the head coach don't talk about the message being sent to the team? Woof. Either that means they can't even stand one another and they can't even be in the same room, which is what Tim McManus reported on ESPN over the offseason, which was, quote, another media story-driven piece of crap, which is not true. It's real. You just don't like to hear what's real. You can't just wave the pom-poms. I'm just as much as a fan as everybody else. But when I smell bullshit, you gotta call bullshit. And this Eagles franchise right now is covered in bullshit. So that reflects the McManus report that they can't even be together without a mediator in the room and some of these quarterback meetings and going over film. That's crazy. So that's how bad it is. And then the worst part of it all, knowing that Jalen's still here and he's not going anywhere, the front office elected to keep them both, but change the surrounding pieces. Now you know why I was so bothered by me looking at their fix as just plopping Kellen Moore in between the two, thinking that would be enough. And it's not. All right, so do we want to get to the Slay podcast thing? Let's do it. The last Eagles podcast I did, I'm a little upset with myself because I had my whole show planned together. So I have my notebook here. I put together my topics. I break them up in order, and then I reference it throughout the show, right? When I glance down. And prior to me hitting record, I had my whole show planned, and then I saw in passing Darius Slay was on the podcast with Micah Parsons, and they were discussing the C.J. Gardner-Johnson beef, but I didn't really give it much thought. I just saw it and said, whatever. And then I did my show. And in my show, in passing, I said, whatever, it doesn't bother me. It's a new wave of athletes, and then I moved on from it. I don't like what he did. I wouldn't do it. I prefer the Saquon Barkley method. If you're supposed to be on Dan Patrick's show after such a brutal loss, if you feel it doesn't put you in the best position possible or optically it's not great, you call them, you say, hey, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm going to take maybe a little break here and I'll get back to you. I promise I'll join the show, but just give me maybe a week or two because now it's not the right time for me. Very professional way to handle it. Yes, I prefer that. 2 thumbs up, Saquon Barkley. I do feel, though, as much as all the controversy behind the scenes and all the nonsense and what this indicates, because this does describe the foolishness of where the Eagles are. I think that is true. I do. People are taking it so extreme. Like back in my day in 1832, we'd never see an Eagle on a Cowboys pod. Yeah, because podcasts from players weren't a thing. It truly doesn't bother me that he went on Micah Parsons' pod if Micah Parsons is on the Cowboys. It really doesn't bother me. I don't like that he talked about C.J. Gardner-Johnson and seeing C.J. somewhat quote tweet him on Instagram saying, damn, ... I don't like that side of it. If he kept the C.J. Gardner-Johnson thing out of his mouth and just talked football or just talked other things, I don't care. I really don't care. I don't like what he talked about with CJ, even though he's not wrong. Like CJ probably know him and Slay, who are big talkers and like to run their mouth and have goofy personalities. I'm sure they crack up behind the scenes, go, yo, CJ, you talk that shit and you don't back it up, you're going to get made fun of forever. And she go, yeah, I know, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like they know. Nothing he said is breaking news, but it's a bad optic. So you shouldn't even put yourself in that position. On a scale of 1 to 10, I don't like it around a 7. Okay? I don't like it a 7 out of 10, which is a significant number. People are taking it to 14 or 15 on a 1 to 10 scale and saying that Slay's a horrible captain. I don't think he did the right things. I'm actually more aggravated with him tweeting out his individual accolades when the game's all said and done, because that's more of a reflection on the, I'm not worried about my teammates thing. Look how good I am. And that's not the first time he's done that. He's done that multiple different times now whenever he gets shredded for having a difficult game or something along those lines. And I think Slay could play way more than a lot of people think he could play, even though it hasn't been the greatest start in the world this season. And I'm questioning at times the way that he leads with his personal accolades being tweeted. I don't love it. All I'm saying is I think we've reached a point of insanity with it from some fans.